Then 39, it is further of imperative importance to mention that the first respondent mentioned and made it clear that he could not guarantee the safety of any of the applicants or even any of the employees employed by any of the applicants. This was seen as a direct threat of the first and second respondents, threatening the safety and security of the applicants and employees employed by them. Well, Lord, let's pause there for a moment. They say, the fact that I said, which he admits that he said, that I can't guarantee the safety and the EFF can't guarantee the safety of the applicants and their employees, it's not a threat against them. But consider reasonably and rationally, my Lord, what is it? If one says, these people are thugs, they were chased out of India, they were kicked out of Lesotho, they're looting the country, we have to drive them out of the country by whatever means. And then, directed at the target of his attack, he says, and by the way, I can't guarantee your safety or the safety of your employees. Why save it? Save, you say, if you don't heed my demands, I can't guarantee your safety. Because, of course, it's not the job of Mr. Malema to guarantee the safety of anyone in the country. That's the work of inter alia, the fourth respondent, the Commissioner of Police for the area, members of the South African Police Force. They're there to prevent crime, to protect people, and also to follow up when crimes have been committed. So for someone to say, you are rubbish, you must be driven out of the country, and I can't guarantee your safety if you stay, to suggest that that is not a threat of violence, a necessary and obvious interpretation in the context. Get out, otherwise I can't guarantee your safety. Then there was an attempt to engage them. And your Lordship sees that. And then, rather than qualifying or retracting any message conveyed in the public television interview, your Lordship sees on page 42 the reference to what was published on the 6th of February, which dispelled any doubt as to the intent of Mr. Malema the EFF and the issuer of the statement, the third respondent. Because this is dealt with, of course, Mr. Malema doesn't say, I know nothing about this, I disavow any of it. He makes it his own by dealing with it. It was put out by Interdict. One sees at the foot of page 46.
Are you referring to paragraph 46?
No, page 46, sorry. It's page 46 and it should be, I'm now going to the 6th. Sorry, my Lord, I was in the affidavit. The affidavit referred now to the response of Mr. Malema and the EFF was to issue a statement to the third respondent. And that's what one has at page 46 Annex B. One just has to pick out and highlight certain things here. It's against the background of what he said in this lengthy television interview. He starts off by saying, first of all, let's tell you how bad the Guptas are. The Guptas fled India in the midst of an uproar and rising resistance to their unquestionable greed and destructive habits of money laundering and downright thuggery. Recently in the SADC, the Guptas were kicked out and had to flee from Lesotho, again under a cloud of threats and intolerance towards their looting habits. Now, let's see what this is based on. Because if you look at the answer, my Lord, might I ask your Lordship to go to the answering affidavit just on that issue. Your Lordship will find JM3, it's the second last page. It's the second last page in the answering affidavit. Because when that is thought to be justified in the answering affidavit, it's done with reference to a press article of 28 June 2015 that says Lesotho revokes Gupta passports. Second last page in the answering affidavit published.
What is the page number, Mr. Moritz?
We don't have a paginated answering affidavit.
My second last page in the... Just a moment.
Answering affidavit. And it's a JM3.
Let me just get to the right document, Mr. Merritt. JM what?
JM3. Second last page.
Yes, I have it, thank you.
Yes. This is apparently based on this. Now one reads the statement at page 46. Recently in the SADC, the Guptas were kicked out and had to flee from Lesotho, again under the cloud of threats and intolerance towards their looting habits. Let's in fact see what the article on which this purports to be based says. The Guptas have been fired as special advisors to the Prime Minister and their diplomatic passports have been revoked. So they had diplomatic passports. They weren't citizens. They'd been engaged as advisors. Prime Minister has removed the politically connected Atul Gupta and his nephew, Essa Omar Aziz, so only one Gupta of course, as his special advisors, and has cancelled the passports they obtained controversially last August. His spokesman, Matumi Valejo, told City Press that Mosisili had no use for them. The Prime Minister said he doesn't need them as advisors. The Home Affairs Minister was left no option but to tell them that their services are no longer needed by the coalition government. Therefore, they had to give back the diplomatic passports. And then if you read through this, your Lordship will see nothing in this article to justify that statement at page 46. So to start off by saying they had to flee India because they were looting the country, engaged in money laundering, they were involved in downright thuggery, much the same in Lesotho, where they had to flee, by implication they had to flee an angry mob in fear of their lives. And this is now, as the EFF in Gauteng, we wish to reiterate that the march and ticket to the Constitutional Court on 9 February will serve a dual purpose.
Mr. Moritz, you must just assist me here. I have 2 copies of the Notice of Motion and Founding Affidavit.
Yes. There's the original not paginated. There's a copy that is back.
Of the answering affidavit, I have an unpaginated copy. I don't have a paginated copy of
Yes,
the
I
answer.
don't have a paginated copy here.
Oh, I see. So, what were you reading from now, lastly?
I was reading from, my Lord, I was reading from JM3, the second last page of the opposing...
No, I had that, but then you
Then I went back to page 46. It's in the founding papers.
Yes, all right.
And it should be, it's the press release of the 6th of February.
Yes.
2016.
Thank you, I just wanted that
Yes.
reference.
So the first 2 paragraphs set out to paint a picture of people involved in money laundering, thuggery and looting have been driven out of 2 other countries and now they sought refuge here. That's the picture that's been painted. Then it says that our march to the Constitutional Court today, that's the 9th of February, will serve a dual purpose. Next paragraph, the first being the support of the clarion call of the EFF that Zuma be made to pay back the money. And then about the public protector. Okay, and then the next one. Now our message is simple. The Guptas, otherwise known as the Zuptas, must heed the call of the Commander-in-Chief of the EFF. Now, of course, one only has a Commander-in-Chief of a militant force. One doesn't have Commanders-in-Chief of a young ladies debating society. Self-styled Commander-in-Chief. It's intended to convey we are a militant force. That's what he calls himself, Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, and advocates South Africa. Otherwise, the predictability of what could happen to them and any of their properties becomes a highly volatile matter. And the Lord come back and say, leave or else the outcome is predictable. What will happen to you and your properties is predictable and becomes a highly volatile matter. Now, of course, it's not just the off-the-cuff statements, it's a press release. The word volatile obviously has a meaning in chemistry, but its primary meaning outside the field of chemistry, Lord, look at any dictionary of the English language, and I quote to your Lordship, tending to violence, explosive, a volatile situation with troops and rioters eager for confrontation. So they write a considered press release saying that if they don't leave, the predictability of what will happen to the Guptas and their properties becomes a situation tending to violence with troops and rioters eager for confrontation. No one can guarantee their safety in this Gauteng. Their safety from whom? The safety from the EFF and those from whom they rally their support. That's the message conveyed. This is an official statement by the EFF. Now, our message is simple. Our being the EFF. Get out of South Africa, or the outcome is predictable and no one can guarantee your safety against what we are going to do to you. Then we, who's we? Issued by Gauteng Economic Freedom Bonds. We are sick and tired of massaging the cheap and thug-like egos of counter-revolutionary neo-capital tendencies of the likes of the Zuptas. Now, of course, defined in the previous paragraph, the Guptas, otherwise known as the Zuptas. In short, we are going to physically drive the Zuptas out of our province by any means possible. And of course, no one can guarantee their safety. Not all the king's horses and all the king's men and all the commissioners of police. We're going to drive them out by any means possible. They cannot have their headquarters in this province any longer. And the answer is, with respect, my lord, is nothing less than arrogant and dismissive and an insult to any reader's intelligence. Because the answer says, but no one can ever think there's a threat of violence. No one can ever think we're going to use physical force against the Guptas or any of their employees or anyone involved in their economic interests. We will mobilize all our branches, especially in the Ekurhuleni, Johannesburg and Tshwane, where we suspect their major activities are based. Of course, the meaning is quite clear. We, the EFF, will mobilize all the EFF branches. In particular areas, Ekurhuleni, Johannesburg and Tshwane, where we suspect their major activities, the Gupta's major activities. To what end? We're going to physically drive them out of our province. All those municipalities are in Gauteng. Then at this time, we only wish to advise them to start sorting out visas. As for the airport, for OR Tambo International Airport remains the only option for port of exit, because Waterkloof must be respected for its state and military functions. We cannot have our public facilities being bastardized into private playgrounds of the likes of the Zuptas. So it again ends with a message. Remember, you're now a South African citizen. So if you want to go elsewhere, you're going to have to get a visa. You better get your visa quickly. And you better get out of here quickly. Because this is what we're going to do, and no one can guarantee your safety. Then your Lordship will see at page 47, the next page, 6th of February, an attempt made to avoid having to go to court for protection. It's written by the editor-in-chief of the New Age newspaper and ANN7, the 24-hour news channel, and it then identifies particular statements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all there. You've advised employees of ANN and the New Age not to travel or attend events because it's not safe for them. Lordship will notice that none of these statements is, in the answering letter, is denied as having been made. You refer to our companies as propaganda machines of corruption. Warned our employees they must not be casualties. You'll go for the enemy. You cannot guarantee the safety. Demanded that the Guptas leave the country. They do not leave. What could happen to them and their properties becomes a highly volatile matter. They'll physically drive the Guptas out of Gauteng by any means possible. You declared battle and war against the Guptas. Again, read today's poster. We will fight war with war. The Guptas must go. So then says Mr. Malema endeavoured to retract the calls for violence after the media statement of 4 February. Despite that apparent attempt, hot on the heels of that, we came with a written, published press statement, which is Annex B, which I read to you. And then,
Did Annex B come after C?
No.
Is that
B came first. B came first. Because B says C then at page 48 says below the number 9. Although your Mr. Malema endeavoured to retract calls for violence after the media statement on 4 February 2016, today we received a statement purported to be issued by the EFF Gauteng calling for the mobilisation of branches to physically remove the Guptas and their businesses out of Gauteng. We believe that your statements are nothing but an attempt to intimidate our employees and their families. These actions are illegal, cannot be accepted in a free and democratic society. So, first the TV interview, then a request that they please reconsider their position, Mr. Malema suggesting we're not going to use violence. Then we get C, which says exactly the opposite. Then the letter gets written. So then we get B, which says exactly the opposite, the press statement of the 6th of February. Then we get C, the letter directly addressing that. Then we get D, another letter written to the EFF. The first one was written to economic freedom fighters. It's a similar letter. And then
where do I find D?
Well, D is the same as E, it's at page 49. Then we go E. E comes from the Office of the Secretary General of the EFF, and it's a response to C, to the letter C, calling please retract, calm down, don't intimidate and threaten people. And the response with respect is again like the answer, arrogant, high-handed and dismissive. It says your letter dated 6 February 2016 refers, page 52. The EFF has reached a conclusion that the New Age, TNA and ANN7 do not constitute part of free media, but instead they are criminal enterprises that are used by Gupta family and Zuma to engage in money laundering and racketeering. Our view is that these are communication entities of the Gupta family that seek to normalize the corrupt activities of the Gupta family and Zuma. Then they continue in that vein about corruption and so on. Then 53. You can read the whole letter, the second paragraph. As relates to what you call threats of violence, it is important not to selectively quote the address of the CRC, that's Commander-in-Chief Julius Malema, at the press conference. The context is significant because if taken into consideration, there is no threat of violence. Of course, it doesn't address the 6th of February statement. The point is we love the journalists who work for TNA, and some are even EFF members. We are conscious that the choice to take a fight with the TNA and ANN7 means that they will be in the crossfire. Crossfire of what? Of the violence. Such a crossfire includes being excluded from EFF events merely by reporting on behalf of TNN and ANN7. Then, look at the last paragraph. So they're a little bit conciliatory towards the press, because they've got a television station where they, who was it that said, Churchill, never pick a fight with someone who buys ink by the barrel. So, conciliatory towards the press, but the last paragraph at page 53, again, just all lip service. Finally, we restate our demand that the Gupta family must, with immediate effect, disengage from all affairs, government, business and media in South Africa and leave the country. In relation to media, the actions of the Gupta and TNA and ANN7 are an assault and abuse of the constitutional rights of free media. We remain unshaken and victory is certain. So, yeah. Then, So it's just a repeat of what the letter of the 6th of February said. And the Lord now, against that background, one now has a way up to do. And your Lordship says, well, do I give credence to the contention in the answering affidavit? No, we don't intend to threaten anyone. No, the EFF followers will not resort to violence against anyone. No, the peace-loving people. South Africa is not a violent nation, and so on and so on and so on. And then say, well, there's no reasonable apprehension of harm. One doesn't grant relief. And with respect, the consequences of such a decision, in other words, not to grant relief, would send out the message that that which the EFF, Mr. Malema, the third respondent, have done is acceptable in our democratic South Africa with its constitutional values. They can target in whatever way they want to, whoever they want to, without resort to due legal process. That's the message that will send. On the other hand, the message we submit should be sent is the message which the editor of the Pretoria News has said, they have gone too far. They've crossed the line, inciting violence, racial hatred, and xenophobia. Of course, lying in the reference to the curry eaters and countries not for sale for a plate of curry, from the Guptas being the Indian curry eaters. And with respect to the Lord, I wasn't here this morning, but I understand that the Lord should ask from the respondents, do they wish to supplement? Do they have anything further they wish to say? I said they didn't stand by the papers as they are. So, Lord, with respect, under those circumstances, there's no reason whatsoever not to grant on these papers, because it calls for an interpretation of common cause conduct. Is it an infringement of rights? The answer must be a resounding yes. Is there a reasonable apprehension of harm flowing from that? The answer with respect must be yes. Is there an alternative remedy? The suggestion in the answer is, well, you can go to the police. But of course, your Lordship well knows that police haven't got the resources or the inclination. Every time someone says, I'm afraid that someone may do something to my thousands of employees, to then deploy thousands of policemen all over the country to stand guard in all the offices. The police, unfortunately, are constrained to say, well, let's keep an eye on it. We'll give you a hotline to call. Let's wait for something to happen, and we'll respond. So that's not an alternative remedy. With respect, the remedy is to send a message out that the right-thinking, reasonable members of the South African society will not tolerate this. And as the editorial says, we shouldn't fight these fights in the court of public opinion. We should fight these fights according to lawful due process. Now, Lord, there's just a couple of aspects in conclusion that I might take the answering affidavit. I don't want to go through every passage, but I believe significant to highlight the things. And it's not numbered, but I'm starting with the first page of the affidavit of Mr. Malema, paragraph 5. That whole paragraph dictates a dismissive, arrogant attitude. Your Lordship has seen what they did and what they said and what's happening today. And then one hears that the incitement of imminent violence against the applicants, their employees and their financial interests are completely baseless, devoid of truth, and based on a complete mischaracterization and self-serving interpretation. It's not a self-serving interpretation, it's the English language. One reads what is stated there. One sees the opportunity. Please dissociate yourself from violence. We believe that what you have said in the television interview will incite violence. Come back and say, we don't care what you say, we'll now put it on a public statement categorically and even stronger than what Mr. Malema said on the television. They suggest that to grant an interdict will stifle open and robust debate. Well, since when has our society tolerated incitement to violence as part of a robust and open debate? Then 6, the EFF has never threatened the applicants with any physical violence. Well, forcibly remove someone from the country. You must take the things and leave immediately. Get your visas and leave immediately. Otherwise, it's going to give rise to a volatile situation and we cannot guarantee your safety. The statement EFF has never threatened the applicants with any physical violence is demonstrably false on these papers on the common cause facts. Then a startling proposition where he says, despite deposing to a lengthy affidavit, the applicants completely failed to point to a single instance of a threat of physical violence for the execution thereof made by the EFF. We only have to refer to the common cause statement in page 46, Annexure B. And then if one looks at the foot of that page, where paragraph 6 is on, it is the third last line, again with respect the absurd contention. It is accordingly nonsensical to imply, as the applicants do, that a call for the expulsion of the Gupta family, I interpose saying we know what expel means, with violence, forcibly, necessarily means the physical violence against them. But it's significant how the whole affidavit is worded. They don't say it does not mean violence, and it couldn't reasonably be interpreted as meaning violence. They say it doesn't necessarily mean violence. So every single paragraph in the answering affidavit ducks the crucial issue. On a plain reading, it means violent expulsion and driving out of South Africa of you and all your economic interests, or else the consequences are predictable and inevitable and will be volatile. Then paragraph 12. This refrain, Your Lordship, I don't have to, Your Lordship will pick up so many of them, but one has to measure against the common